Welcome again at the time with Professor Emeritus Stephen Adei. We are still continuing our productivity paradigm. We looked at productivity paradigm as a philosophy or worldview which sees individual welfare, companies' progress, and the wealth of nations not dependent upon even prayers or some magic or some way of patrimony, but basically on hard work, diligence, productivity, savings, and investment. We looked at the fact that there is a solid religious basis for that in the Bible. God expected us to be productive, to be fruitful, and to multiply. We also looked at the fact that all throughout the Bible, all the rich people, even those who got themselves in trouble like the rich fool, got their wealth not by any other means than hard work, productivity, plugging into the seasons and nature and trusting God to bless the work of their hands. We then came to the fact that the basis of economic growth is productivity. Yes, we will come to that there are issues of distribution of wealth between owners and workers, which we will be referring to soon. But unless the national cake grows and expands, there may be some who may use rough tactics, as somebody says, communist inferior tactics, to get more through corruption or other means. But that does not increase the wealth of the nation, and they do so at the expense of other critical segments of the population. What I want to do today, even though I know that my typical audience will not be an economist, but just to refer to about 4 important authors who in economic history, their work are defining moments, and then one practitioner, because we want to look at what is behind the Chinese economic miracle, being a communist country or socially following Marxist-Leninist philosophy. And we will conclude that even there, the great material progress has to do with the adopting the productivity paradigm rather than the communist tendency of communal ownership and everything goes by the state. For those who are not economists, the father of economics is Adam Smith. Interestingly, he came from a native of Glasgow, was teaching in Glasgow University, and whilst a student in Glasgow at Strathclyde University, we used to have seminars in the Adam Smith building, quite historic, to go and see this great economist, now with a building named after him where he lectured. And Adam Smith's work, the main work is in his book, The Wealth of Nations. And he discovered that the key to expanding beyond craftsmanship and everybody doing everything was the division of labor, allowed a massive expansion of productivity. He was using a very small illustration, but a powerful one. He says that imagine someone having to produce just a needle from the point of digging the ore, melting it, getting the ore, getting the metal, and all of them to the point that he will make a pin. It's almost an impossible. If he's able to do about 10 pins in his lifetime, that may be a great achievement. Yes, the division of labor allows by people, miners mining, metallurgy, smelting and getting the metal up, factories making the strings, and because of the division of labor, the result is that the end product is millions, if not billions of pins can be made. But at the core of his division of labor is the fact that is the division of labor leading to a very high level of productivity, and that defined the wealth of nations. Of course, he said other things. I'm not going to go into detail. He promoted free markets. He said the free markets allows the economic agents to be able to give their best, and the fact that their self-interest will drive them. There's been a lot of questions about that, because if you're allowing self-interest and unregulated free market, it can also lead to some negative consequences. And also, he believed that the market would, by supply and demand, fixing the prices, things will work, and each of the factors of production will get their fair share. Of course, we know that the market can be distorted, but at the core of his work is the fact that division of labor, specialization, increasing efficiency leads to high level of productivity. We will talk about how it is shared among the different elements. Interestingly, about a little less than a century after him, came one of the most prominent work, which became the basis of all the communist work by Karl Marx. In fact, his Communist Manifesto and his Das Kapital together, the Communist Manifesto saying that society is a continuous conflict between those who own capital and labor. But in Das Kapital, he was saying that the source of productivity is only labor and everybody lives on it. I think that was fundamentally wrong, but the fact is that he acknowledged that labor productivity is the main cause of the advancement of societies, except that in his case, he thought that those who were owning the capital, the bourgeoisie, as he called them, took unfair advantage of the labor, and the tendency was to pay them the least possible one. And therefore, to him, there's a need for them to seek for their liberation. But that is different from what I'm talking about. Even in the case of Karl Marx, the emphasis is that is the labor, is the productive element, though we all know that that is not true, that productivity, there's the labor is one of them, there's capital, there's technology, and there are other factors that come in. It is quite interesting that just before Karl Marx, just after Karl Marx Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital, there was another work which it was not intended to be a strong economic one, but had an important economic element, that is by a German public servant who was called Max Weber. If you are not German, you will say Max Weber, but basically it is Max Weber. And Max Weber's thesis was very simple, but very powerful. He was saying that the Protestant Reformation, particularly this particular version of Calvinism, John Calvin was a Protestant leader in Switzerland, and the Swiss are reputed of saying that God gave them mountains and lakes and John Calvin, and that is enough. So for them, Calvinism was an important element in the economic rise of the Swiss. And today, of course, Switzerland is one of the most beautiful and also prosperous country for anyone to live there. I must say, whilst I lived many years in the diaspora, the only time I was caught overspeeding was in Switzerland. And I came to really admire their system, because even though I was not conscious that I had exceeded the speed limit, I had rented a car, and when I went to my base in New York with the UN, I got a summons, a fine, through the car agent that I overspeeded. I think that we need some system like that. And then I sent them my fine. But Switzerland is a very beautiful country. And John Calvin was saying that basically Protestantism is, its ethical element is founded on the productivity paradigm, and that is the work of Max Weber. There he postulates basically three things. First, he says that the Protestant ethic, which of course Calvin was the main champion, promoted strong work ethic, emphasized diligence at work, hard work, and thriftiness as moral values. In other words, if you were a good Christian, you were diligent, you worked hard, and you were thrifty, not spend your money, as we say in Ghana, by heart. And these are values which are as important as thou shalt not sin and do this and that and that. In fact, they reinforced it by their doctrine of predestination. In other words, which God had determined those who are going to be saved, and you prove that you are among them by your hard work. But that's not where we are going to, because the doctrine of predestination is a religious one, which is not the basis of my discussion here. And he added that in addition, those Protestants were encouraged to think, to calculate, to plan for the future. And this, combined with their hard work, their thriftiness, their savings and investment, led to the rise of capitalism. And his work actually is titled The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, published in 1905, the original one. Again, even though he's coming from the religious angle, what he was saying is that the rise of high level of wealth and accumulation of Europe came as a result of this worldview of Protestants, which encourage people to work hard. Let me now, because a lot of special trade unions, even in the West and our countries in particular, take their roots from Karl Marx and Lenin. And it's quite important for us to see whether that had a future. What it meant, there's, of course, there's a class struggle, and therefore there's a need to overthrow the capitalists and the bourgeoisies, and then let the people who are undertrodden workers take over. And that's actually what communist revolution was all about. But it's quite important to note that even at that time, there's a book which many of you at school will have read it, The Animal Farm. Animal Farm says that at the end, there's no liberation. And as Napoleon and his co becomes, the leaders, the pigs, then they say that all animals are equal, but some are more equal than the other. In other words, Karl Marx's classless society became an illusion. And over time, it is the Animal Farm's predictions, George Orwell's prediction, actually has been much more true than Karl Marx's philosophy. But that is not what I'm going to argue here. But I want to take a country, a communist country, which in recent times has proven to be the most successful economic miracle, and that is China. If anybody really practiced communism in its perfect form, I think it was the Chinese, even more than the communists. And Chairman Mao was a perfect example of communism at its best. And make no mistake, there's no doubt at all that communism, within the shortest possible time, improved material welfare to a certain level, education, health, and others. But it plateaued because there was something wrong. At a certain point, if you are going to pay the doctor the same as the laborer, nobody's going to go to medical school for 7 years and sweat and come and share one apartment with the one who didn't go to school. But that is not. But the father of the Chinese economic miracle is Deng Xiaoping. And he became the leader of the Communist Party and China between the years 1978 and 1989. And what I want to say is that the fundamental principles of the productivity paradigm is what he adopted and which has made China today the world's fastest growing, most powerful economy next to America. And when we project to the future, probably is on its way to be the most dominant economy in the world. And what Deng Xiaoping did was to let his people understand that market-oriented reforms are very necessary, because if you continue to go by state enterprises, people put in their least, and we see it even in the state enterprises in Ghana. So he allowed competition, private companies, even inviting companies from outside, and that engendered a new wave of productivity among the communists. Of course, he decentralized when it came to the economic part without socially decentralizing our political power, but the economic decision was decentralized. He encouraged export growth, heavy investment in human capital, and allow pragmatic decisions to be taken at the factory level, with the result that their productivity started. They were having 5-year plans, and every 5 years, even what they project was exceeded. What am I saying? What I'm saying is that economic history, the other time I was talking about economic as a subject, economic history confirms that the productivity paradigm is the cornerstone of the wealth of nations. I've had during my career as a younger man, and not too young, because it was my 40s to 60 in particular, visiting places like China, Thailand, South Korea, Singapore, Malaysia, Brazil, and the rest. You can see that at a certain point, they started to emphasize productivity. And as they did so, above patrimony, and some of them I'll be talking about the things that weigh us down in our part of the world, the economic takeoff was almost inevitable. And we call them the Asian miracle, tigers, and the Asian miracle. At the end of it was a sustained economic productivity, whereby the unit cost of machine gave you more unit labor because they invested in the quality of labor, applying technology, importing ideas from wherever they come. Of course, all these countries which came to prominence in the last 100 years was started by Japan. Japan is Zen Buddhist country, and yet at a certain point they knew that they had to adopt the Western productivity paradigm. they sent people in their thousands to the West, learn what they were doing, did reverse engineering, and achieved higher level of productivity. This is what we in Ghana and in Africa must start changing our mind and knowing that our future lies in being productive labor, productive capital, unit cost getting down, and output being raised. We will talk later about, as we grow, how we would share, because that's where the trade union and the capitalist arguments come in. But we are talking here about increasing the pie. And what I will be doing from next week is looking at the type of mindsets which are dragging us down, which are anti-productivity paradigm, which must be shared in favor of the productivity paradigm. And after that, I'll be looking at how does it all apply to the individual bloke, the small-scale farmer and entrepreneur, factories, and our nation. I trust that as we go through these discussions, it's not a matter of indicting anybody, but we will come to the point that unless we change our mind and embrace the productivity paradigm, literally that there's no free lunch, we will soon have no lunch. I wish you the best. Shalom, and the Lord be with you. Once again, every week, I will try to share this on ZFM, the leisure and business radio station 101.9 ZFM. And as always, meet me on YouTube. All that I'm saying is that the long-term historical economic studies underscore and confirm that productivity paradigm is not just a pie in the air. It's the only way we are going to make it as individuals and as a nation. Shalom, and may the Lord be with you till I meet you again next week. Having gone over the hard stuff of quoting this and that, we'll come down to our level as Ghanaians. Thank you.